Alrighty, so we're going to wrap up chapter 7 with a little discussion about the rib cage. And this is our last handout for chapter 7-8. And then I'm going to just continue with our PowerPoint for this video to wrap up the PowerPoint slides and finish chapter 7 and 8. So I will focus first on the rib cage. And we'll look at stuff that we did in lab, right? So we know that there are 12 ribs, and that these 12 ribs are divided into 3 different types. And so we've got our vertebral sternal, which are the red ones. We've got our vertebral chondral, which are the blue ones. And then our vertebral ribs only attach to the vertebrae, so they're kind of down below on their own. Remember, there are 7. The first 7 from top to bottom are the vertebral sternal. The pairs 8, 9, and 10 are vertebral chondral. And then pairs 11 and 12 are vertebral. The sternum is made up of 3 parts: the manubrium, the body or gladiolus, and the xiphoid process. And these bones together make up our rib cage. Now, what's really important about the lecture class is the functions. So let's look at the functions of our rib cage. The functions of the rib cage are, they're going to protect our vital organs. Of course, you know, heart and lungs are protected by the rib cage. They form a semi-rigid chamber for respiration. So your rib cage forms this chamber that can expand and contract to allow air in and out of your lungs. This is done because in between each rib, we have muscles called intercostal muscles. They are in between the ribs. In these intercostal spaces, we're going to have these intercostal muscles. We have 2 pairs. One pair is going to contract and expand our chest, and the second pair is going to contract and shrink our rib cage, or contract it. So we've got these intercostal muscles. So, you know, anytime you go to like Rib City or Famous Dave's and you order a half rack of ribs, the meat that you're eating are these intercostal muscles of either a cow or a pig. So we are built the same way. We've got these intercostal muscles in between the ribs that are going to expand and contract our chest. This forms a chamber for respiration. When someone is injured and they have some broken ribs, they may have trouble breathing because this chamber is compromised, and we can't expand and contract that chest as well with broken ribs. Okay, so that takes care of our handout. Let's just finish this chapter with a few of our PowerPoint slides. So chapter 8 is all about the appendicular skeleton, and you do need to know what bones make up the axial skeleton and what bones make up the appendicular skeleton. You can't forget about, you know, the axial skeleton is your skull, your vertebrae, your rib cage, and then your appendicular skeleton. Appendicular means appendages. So they are your arms and legs. So don't forget what bones make up your arms. So, you know, it's not that difficult. Your humerus, your radius, your ulna. Then you got carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. Same thing with your leg. They are analogous with one another. So you got your femur, your tibia, your fibula, tarsals, metatarsals, phalanges. The only difference between your arms and legs, really anatomically, as far as bones are concerned, is the patella. You have a kneecap, but you don't have an elbow cap. So that is one big difference. Also, if you recall from lab, at least with my class, we have 8 carpals, but we only have 7 tarsals. In our evolutionary line, 2 of our tarsals fuse together to make one bone. We used to have 8, now we have 7. We can actually show which bone that is that fused together. We also have these girdles. So we have a shoulder or pectoral girdle that's made up of the clavicle and scapula. And then the pelvic girdle is made out of our os coxae, the ilium, ischium, and pubic bone. So these structures combined give us our appendicular skeleton. And just make sure that you can delineate between the bones of our axial skeleton and the bones of our appendicular skeleton. One interesting thing about our appendicular skeleton is the way that our phalanges are laid out. We have opposable thumbs that allow us to grab stuff. So with our wrist, we have those 8 carpal bones, 5 metacarpals in our hands, and then our phalanges, 3 for each finger, remember, and then 2 for our thumb, and our thumb is opposable. Then, of course, we've got our os coxa. Remember that it's made out of the ilium, the ischium, and the pubic bone. Joining the 2 pubic bones is that pubic symphysis. But the pelvis is interesting, and I went over this in lab, so those of you that have my lab class, that pubic symphysis or symphysis pubis, I don't know why they switch the names. I think it's just to confuse us. But during childbirth, this cartilage, the pubic symphysis, is influenced by a hormone called relaxin that increases the flexibility of the pubic symphysis, which allows the pubic bones to spread apart, and so baby's head can fit through. That's good to know for this lecture class as well. In lab, I did talk about the difference between a male and a female os coxa, and it all has to do with our sciatic notch. So if I go back up, you've got a sciatic notch. That is this inner notch. You have a nerve called the sciatic nerve that goes through it. But in females, it's very broad. In males, it's very pointed. So you can see it right here. This is a male skull. What am I talking about? We can actually determine gender by skulls too, but my brain is malfunctioning. We're talking about the os coxa here. So if you look at this is a male os coxa, and you can see how pointed it is, right? So this greater sciatic notch is very pointed. In females, it's much more broad. And that's, again, to allow for a bigger birth canal so that ginormous baby's head can fit through that birth canal. And so I may have a question about this on our exam. Now, to kind of end things, I wanted to mention our foot, because our foot is very interesting and unique because we, remember, are the only bipedal animals that walk on 2 legs. So our feet need to be able to distribute weight of our body, because your foot is taking on all of your body weight. So we have developed these arches. So you have arches in your foot that help distribute the weight of your body. We've got longitudinal arches that go from your toes to your heel. And then we've got lateral or transverse arches that go across from medial to lateral on your foot. Now, I'm not going to ask you about transverse versus longitudinal arches on the test, but you need to know their function. So their function is to distribute weight evenly in our body. And then I also want you to look at this picture to the right, these footprints. The footprint on the top is an adult that has nice arches. And so this typical footprint, we're missing the middle of our foot. It's just not there. It's because it never touches the ground. So a person with good arches is going to leave a footprint with the middle of their foot almost gone. This is the bottom footprint is a footprint of a child. Children are flat-footed, and you actually develop your arches as you grow up. So if you go to the beach and you look at little kids running around, they're going to have flat-footed footprints that show all of their foot. But then as we grow up, most of us develop arches, and that helps distribute the weight. Now, some of us never do this, so we never develop our arches properly. And I'm one of them. I'm very flat-footed. So when I run around at the beach, my adult footprint looks like a child because I didn't develop these arches. This also creates a problem with me when I'm hiking around or walking. When I'm on my feet all the time, I get really tired. So, you know, if we went on a 10-mile hike, you might feel fine at the end of the hike because of your arches. I am not having arches, so I can't distribute the weight properly. And so flat-footed people tend to be very fatigued after a long hike or march. It used to be that they didn't even allow flat-footed people into the military because you couldn't march as far as someone with arches. That was one of the criteria you had to meet, was to have arches to join the Army. All right, so we are done with this chapter, or I should say these sets of chapters. So the good news is chapter 7 and 8 is really easy. You just have to go through these few videos and make sure that you know the general information, and then really focus on chapter 6 for this test next week. All right, I will see you later. Have a great day.